We should hear from Chris Packham now. Please welcome Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. A vote of thanks. I'll go round. Firstly, can I ask you to thank with vigour and enthusiasm the Metropolitan Police who've looked after us today. Thank you very much. Also looking after us today, the XR stewards who've given up their time. Clarissa, who's been a great MC, thank you very much indeed. This event was organised by essentially three people. One of them can't be with us today. He's a remarkable young man. His energy knows no bounds. His skills are not yet unparalleled, but he's working on it and he'll soon reach that point. His name is Fabian Harrison. He's not here, but I'd like you to give him a massive round of applause. Emma Smart is not wearing a cheap tacky crown, a tight-fitting bodice and a cape, but she is Wonder Woman. Emma Smart, come on, let's... Emma's done a remarkable job of bringing everyone here today, and it is, I think, important. We also have to thank all of our scientists. In science, we trust, and they have spoken both in terms of data, which is great because we love data, but they've also spoken with extraordinary passion. Let's hear it for our scientists. We've had poetry. Poetry was good. We've had an artist. The gentleman was sat at the back earlier with his easel, painting each and every one of you. I hope he hasn't done your likenesses any injustice. But what a thing we've done. We've come together as a community at last, something that we've needed to do for some considerable period of time. So I wonder what has motivated that. At this point, I'd like you to cast your minds back. Think deeply. Well, it may be deep into your past, it may be recent. You don't need to close your eyes unless you need to do so to focus, but try and identify that one formative moment when you essentially had your passion for the natural world lit, when that spark was fuel to ignite your fascination and your curiosity. That moment which has led you to this moment. What was it? Was it a flower on a road verge? Was it the song of a bird you couldn't identify? Was it a tickle of a tadpole on the palm of your hand? Was it the flash of a fox passing your gate? Something, somewhere, has instigated your lifelong desire to look after wildlife. Something fuels you to give up your time, your energy. It's caused you to invest in the development of expertise, whether that's identifying and collecting data or unraveling the science which has gone together to produce the State of Nature report. Something has got you out of bed, probably earlier than many people on most days, to go out into nature, connect with it, and try and make a better world for it. Something intrinsically has made you care. And that's kept you going, as it keeps me going. And when I need it, I go back to it. When I'm exhausted, when I'm tired, when I feel downtrodden and beaten, I get two poodles and I wander about in a woods. And frankly, that's all I need to get me back on my feet. And I'm sure that many of you do something similar. You get down on your hands and knees and you sniff, or you look, or you listen, or you feel. And that connection keeps you going. But what we've got to admit is that collectively, for all of our energy, all of our passion, all of that fuel, the State of Nature report says that we're not doing enough. But it also says, critically, that we can, that we have the capacity. We've developed the skills, the expertise, the technologies. We have that energy, and we've certainly got the passion, that when we focus those endeavours, we can make a difference. We've just not had the capacity to do that broadly enough and rapidly enough. And that's what brings us here, because we're running out of time. Because we've all recognised that caring is not enough. Now we have to act. And many people, as you've heard, and as you probably communicated privately, are here for the first time. I've met quite a few people who've come up and said, I never thought I'd be at something like, I'm 50 years old, someone said to me. And I thought, well, I'm 62, you're lucky. I'm 50 years old and I never thought I'd be on the streets, campaigning, demonstrating. What's brought us here now is the realisation that we have to act now. And it's difficult for some people. It's difficult for some organisations. But for those of you who have taken this first step, let me tell you now that you are activists. You've been scientists. You've been naturalists. You've been entomologists. I could run through all of the ists. But now you're activists. You've taken direct action. Look, you've blocked a street. You've done it without paint, glue or powder. As far as I'm aware, and I sincerely hope, no one's been arrested. Although there was a man over there with a pair of trousers that I thought were an offence earlier. It's not that difficult, is it? It's not that scary. And what I would say to you is, please get used to it. Because I fear that over the coming months and years, we will need to unite in even larger numbers. We are collectively grateful for our collective today, for everyone who's turned out, for all of those organisations that have stood up, got on the train, got on their bikes, got on the tube, and have turned up to be here and represented today. They've taken that bold step, and we thank them for that. We thank them for the fact that we've been able to come together and communicate across such a broad spectrum of that care, concern, and need to act. We've heard from people who are concerned about animal welfare, people who are concerned about plants, and every other taxa and group. I was even given earlier a fossil. It's a bit too late for the ichthyosaur, I'm afraid. But I really appreciate this. It'll go on the shelf in my office. And it feels good when I rub it on my lips. I'm allowed to do that because I can't sniff goshawks any longer. Ultimately, the conservation movement, the environmental movement, needs to stand up. It needs to stand up and be counted. It needs to shout above the noise. We've proven today we can do that in a legitimate, democratic and peaceful fashion. Next time, to all of the NGOs who have come today, you may perhaps have to call upon your membership. Today it wasn't about vast numbers of people, it was about you who have come. Recognising, communicating and basically staking your claim on that tarmac in that street. But at some stage in the future, we may be calling upon you to mail all of your members, and we may need you to convince them that they need to take that bold step as well. The collective membership total of people present today, and there may be a few duplicates, is 8 million people. 8 million people are members of the UK's conservation and environment NGOs. 8 million people. That is power. And we must exercise that power. Because rest assured, you have stood and listened to people today speaking from their heart. They've opened their hearts and they've shed tears. Your members feel the same way. They communicate that on social media. They communicate that to me and you all of the time. They share our concerns. We must not neglect that. Our movement must modernise rapidly. And we live in a different world. Our politics has changed. We've seen in just the last few days and weeks the way that our politics has changed. Decisions not being made for good policy, but being simply made for populism. And that will be our undoing. I couldn't stand here if I didn't think that there was some hope. But we've got masses of it. I've been to your reserves. I've met your staff, your volunteers, your members. I've listened to the scientists that work for Natural England, Scottish Natural Heritage, Natural Resources Wales, the statutory bodies, as well as everything else. I know that there are people in here who have got up today because they do want to do a better job for nature. What we need to make sure is that they have the resources to do so. But the report says they've had their budgets cut by up to 50% in recent years, 5% in the last 5 years. These people can't do their jobs because they're not being supported by our politicians. My demand today is to restore nature now. And you can go to restorenaturenow.com where we produce these posters. And what I'm asking for is that all of our principal parties put robust, resilient, and realistic policies into their manifestos, which ensure that there are nature-friendly farming, forestry, and fishing practices which are mandatory. Mandatory being the key word. The report says that when we can implement those higher level agri-environment schemes, that albeit slowly, they do work. The report says that 71% of our UK surface is covered in farmland, but only 20% of that is in those subsidies which do work. 20%. Is it any wonder why we're failing? All of our farmers have to have access to those schemes. They have to be properly supported. They have to be accessible. They have to be flexible so that they can implement them in a way that they are able to make those differences. That's a significant change in policy. But ultimately, of course, that requires funding. So we need our government, our treasury, to make sure that these people have the funding to give those farmers. Ditto forestry, ditto fishing. We can fix it, but as I said, not broadly enough and rapidly enough. The report says we're running out of time. We need our politicians to make that difference. That's why we need mandatory measures for us to vote for. And that's what we should be calling for, I believe. In terms of thanks, I do thank all of you for coming. I recognise that sometimes it's been a difficult decision. I know there's been a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of late-night phone calls. Should we? Can we? All I can say is, the next time you get an email from myself, Fabian, Emma, before you start thinking about how you make that decision, cast your mind back to that moment that I asked you to think about. That formative moment when you fell in love with nature. Because it's that that should shape what you do and how you act. It's that that should instigate your desire to raise your voice. Not some political affiliation, not some worry about the members getting upset, not some worry about a Conservative MP getting you on the phone. Let your heart lead your actions. Use your head to shape them, but stand up for nature. Because nature doesn't have a voice, but we do. Nature can't act, but we must. Thank you for coming.